This is Michael Popok, Legal AF, with some breaking news about Donald Trump, the special grand jury in Manhattan, Michael Cohen as a witness before that special grand jury about the Stormy Daniels hush money cover-up affair, and Mark Pomerantz, the former special prosecutor in that same office, who's busy dumping on Alvin Bragg about why Pomerantz quit a year ago because he thought there was a case to be made against Donald Trump for financial fraud. But also Pomerantz has his own opinion about the Stormy Daniels affair and prosecution related to it. And Michael Cohen, I'm going to wrap it all together in one hot take right now. So Michael Cohen, former lawyer, fixer, consigliere for Donald Trump, already went to jail, committed perjury related to Stormy Daniels, served his time, debt to society, and now a podcaster and friend on the MeidasTouch network. But that's not why we're talking about him now. We're talking about him now as a potential witness in a major case against Donald Trump. Michael Cohen wants to testify against Donald Trump. Michael Cohen has cooperated with the Manhattan DA's office over the last couple of years and the New York Attorney General's office, but it's heating up now. He went in 2 weeks ago, brought his cell phone with him to unlock it for the Manhattan DA investigators and prosecutors, and now he's disclosed on a podcast on the MeidasTouch network, Political Beatdown with Ben Masalis, that he's ready, willing, and able to go in again. He's going in on Wednesday for another round of interviews with the Manhattan DA's office.
Something I'm going to share with the Meidas Mighty, with the Political Beatdown family. I am scheduled to come in tomorrow for my 15th appearance with the district attorney. Now, I know this is going to make all sorts of news, and I'm sure my phone's going to start blowing up in any second now. So many people have already heard about it. You know, it's the funny thing, especially when it comes to whether it's the district attorney, the AG's office, the Southern District of New York, they all have people inside that office that leak information out. And so I feel it's fair that our Political Beatdown family should know it as well. Tomorrow, I am going in to meet with the DA's team again for the 15th time. And I really do believe, despite all the hoopla, and it's a very good book. I've read part of it already, Mark Pomerantz's book. I do believe that Alvin Bragg is serious. I believe that whatever occurred in the past is the past, and I think he legitimately believes that there is a case to be made against Donald Trump. Now, of course, we'll see. I'll let everybody know on our next live event how things went. Obviously, I'm just speculating at this moment, but once again, it's now the 15th time that I'm heading in to discuss this and several matters with the DA's team tomorrow. And I'm looking forward to it, to be very honest with you.
They're obviously getting Michael Cohen ready to go into the special grand jury and testify against Donald Trump about all things Stormy Daniels. To remind everybody, Stormy Daniels claimed that she had an affair and sexual relationships with Donald Trump, candidate Donald Trump, in 2016 while he was married. And of course, Donald Trump wanted to kill that story. So according to Michael Cohen's testimony under oath in the Oval Office, they cooked up a plan to have Michael Cohen pay through Stormy Daniels' attorney $130,000 to make that story disappear. If you think, wow, Donald Trump would never do something like that, it's already been established he did exactly those things involving other people other than Stormy Daniels. For instance, the National Enquirer, a rag sheet that you used to find at the newspaper, based in Boca Raton, their editor, David Pecker, close friend of Donald Trump, already admitted to an FEC, Federal Election Commission violation by doing exactly that with another Playboy playmate who claimed to have an affair and sexual relationships with Donald Trump, and almost the same amount of money was paid to her, $150,000, for a catch and kill program operated by the National Enquirer, meaning they went out and caught the story and paid off the person and then killed it so it never saw the light of day to benefit Donald Trump. That's already been admitted in lawsuits and in payments made by the National Enquirer. Michael Cohen says the exact same thing happened with Stormy Daniels. And it sat around in the Manhattan DA's office all this time. Cy Vance, the original Manhattan DA, sort of heard the story, didn't think much of it in terms of a criminal prosecution, kicked it over to Alvin Bragg. And Alvin Bragg, for the first year, frankly, didn't think much about that as a criminal prosecution because, there is a way to amp that up to a felony. Paying hush money, if you will, is not a crime in and of itself unless you doctor your books, lie about it to the FEC, and then there's an argument to be made that it is an improper election benefit that wasn't properly declared, especially when Donald Trump wrote it down in his books through Alan Weisselberg, his CFO, as a legal retainer reimbursement for Michael Cohen. We know that's not true. Michael Cohen didn't pay the $130,000 for himself. So that's a lie. And so, but is it a lie that's a misdemeanor under New York law, or is it a lie that you can somehow ratchet up to a felony? And that was the horns of a dilemma that the prosecutors had. That's why Cy Vance kind of went, meh, not really into that case. And, Alvin Bragg said the same thing. Now, Mark Pomerantz, who's out with a brand new bombshell memoir called The People versus Donald Trump, written from his vantage point as a 2-year special prosecutor brought in just to do nothing else but investigate and potentially prosecute Donald Trump. He craps all over Alvin Bragg and says, but not on the Stormy Daniels case. He sort of agrees that Stormy Daniels is not that great of a case, at least in Mark Pomerantz's view. And then he goes over the plus and minuses of Michael Cohen, which I'll share with you from a prosecutor witness bias standpoint. Let's put a pin in that for a minute. But he thinks, Mark Pomerantz does, that the bigger case that Alvin Bragg is still sitting on is the inflation of real estate value done fraudulently by Donald Trump and people around him like Alan Weisselberg in order to get bigger loans from banks, in order to get insurance on those properties, and that they weren't based on proper appraisals at all. They were based on the imagination of Donald Trump and lies made to banks and to insurance companies. That, to Pomerantz, is the bigger case. Now, that case may sound familiar to you because that's exactly the case that the New York Attorney General, Letitia James, is going to try against Donald Trump and 16 other defendants, including all the kids, well, not Barron, but all the other kids, and Alan Weisselberg in October. And don't fret, that trial is going October 2nd at 10 a.m. How do I know that? Because Judge Engoron just this week said hell or high water. Trial starts October the 2nd. Now, we all want to see Donald Trump in jail for doing bad things, don't we? But in terms of financial hell, the one that's got the most power, the superhero with the greatest powers, the Superman or Superwoman of them all, is the Attorney General, because she can give the death penalty to all the companies Donald Trump operates, take all the money out of his bank accounts, make him pay back and disgorge all the profits he's made over the years, make sure he never serves as a New York corporate officer or director ever again, and the kids. That's all on the civil side. None of that gets accomplished in the criminal courthouse. The only thing criminal courthouses are good for, and we like that, is liberty. You're going to jail, you're not going to jail. It's binary. The light is on, the light is off. That's over at the criminal side of the courthouse. Civil side of the courthouse, you could put somebody into the fifth ring of hell financially and leave them bankrupt and crying for their mommy in the corner. That's Letitia James. So keep that in mind. So Pomerantz has his own opinions about Michael Cohen from a prosecutor standpoint, not from a I want to share a beer with Michael Cohen standpoint. We all want to share a beer with Michael Cohen. I like him. I love the podcast he does on the MeidasTouch network. He served his debt to society, right? He's paid his price already, and I believe he's telling the truth. But when he gets up on that stand, not in front of the grand jury, but in the trial where he's being cross-examined vigorously by Donald Trump's lawyers, maybe Joe Tacopina, one of these bulldog litigators that Trump just hired, he's got some splaining to do. For instance, You're a felon, right, Mr. Cohen? Yes. You committed perjury. That means lying under oath, didn't you? Yes. To Congress and to other places. Yes. And you worked for Donald Trump. Yes. And you covered up and participated in Stormy Daniels. Yes. And you sued Donald Trump because you felt you stayed in prison too long because he worked behind the scenes to keep you in prison that long, didn't you? You see the cross-examination. So Mark Pomerantz and Alvin Bragg, we've heard, has always had a little trouble with Michael Cohen. Again, not as a person, not as a truth teller, but because he comes with a little bit of baggage. And all that baggage is going to get unpacked hour by hour by hour in front of a jury. And you don't want the jury to lose or Michael to lose credibility in front of that jury. So you don't want, I think everybody would agree, you can't win a case with just Michael Cohen. You got to have another corroborating witness. And ironically, the other corroborating witness in the Stormy Daniels hush money cover-up fraud case that Alvin Bragg is now looking at, this zombie case back from the dead, like Walking Dead or The Last of Us or whatever, is Alan Weisselberg, another felon who's sitting in Rikers Island right now. When he wasn't a felon, looking at 5 months and maybe 5 to 10 years for future insurance fraud, where he'll never see the light of day. He was the CFO, chief financial officer for Donald Trump. Donald Trump inherited him from Donald Trump's father, Fred, so he knows where all the bodies are buried. But, there's not a witness alive that's going to testify against Donald Trump that's like not a felon himself. So maybe that's a wash. Maybe that's what they call in the gaming business a push. You got one felon on one side, one felon on the other. Jury kind of throws up with their hands and says, who do we believe? I know who they're not going to believe. They're not going to believe Donald Trump. So a lot of information today. Let me summarize it. Michael Cohen, former lawyer for Donald Trump, involved, last man, the bag man for the actual payment to Stormy Daniels. A plot hatched, according to Michael Cohen, in the White House, in the Oval Office by Donald Trump. He's about to testify in front of the grand jury, special grand jury in New York. How do I know that? Because he's already told the world, including on his own podcast, that he's going in on Wednesday for a second interview to get prepared for just such a thing. On the other hand, you got Mark Pomerantz with his new book out there called The People versus Donald Trump. He was a special prosecutor. He's pissed off at Alvin Bragg that his case for financial fraud is not going to trial, isn't going, that Alvin kind of rejected it and said, I'm really not interested in that case. And he doesn't think very much of the Stormy Daniels prosecution that Alvin Bragg does look like he's going to be prosecuting, and has his own opinions about Michael Cohen as a witness. This is a lot to follow. This is why we do it here on Legal AF, and I bring it to you in a hot take at least once a day. If you're interested in following me as well, you can find me at @MS Popok and on Legal AF every Wednesdays and Saturdays. Michael Popok reporting.
The best part of waking up? MAGA Tears in my cup. Check out the new MAGA Tears mug available now at store.MeidasTouch.com. That's store.MeidasTouch.com.